I'm Kylie. I am a talent advisor here at the Katapult Network. As the world is changing in many ways, we must adapt to the changes that are in the hiring process. Many companies are now working from home, shifting their interviews to being done virtually. No more clammy handshakes, getting lost in big office buildings, or arriving way too early for your interview. One of our first videos taught you how to set up for a virtual interview. If you haven't already watched it, make sure to go check it out. In this video, we'll get a little more in depth with virtual interviews. After you're done watching the video, you'll know how to make the best impression through the screen. First of all, and possibly most importantly, is to eliminate any distractions. You don't want anything to take your interviewer's attention away from you or what you're saying during your interview. If you have roommates or family members at home, make sure they know when your interview time is. That way they don't barge in to ask questions, or they know to turn the music down in the kitchen. Pets should always be kept in another room. Even if your dog is well trained or your cat is mellow, you should still keep them in another room just in case. Plain backgrounds are perfectly fine. If you have something memorable yet professional looking behind you, this is a way that you can stand out, but don't worry if you have just a blank wall. No matter what, your background should be distraction-free. Check your lighting. It can be really distracting for an interviewer if you're washed out by the light from a window or if it appears that you're sitting in the dark. Ideally, you would be lit from the front by natural light. However, a lamp positioned behind your computer works as well. Do your best not to sit in front of a bright window, as it can make it nearly impossible for the interviewer to see you clearly. If a window is unavoidable, either pull down the blinds or close the curtains. Once you have your interview space decided, figure out a good distance for your computer to be. You don't want it to be too close, but you also don't want it to be sitting too far away. Having your computer or camera about 3 feet away can make it easier for the interviewer to see your hand gestures, which can make the conversation a little bit more dynamic. No one wants to stare at your forehead or your chin the entire time. Technical issues are another distraction to avoid at all costs. Make sure that your setup is all ready to go before your interview. Test your microphone to make sure that number 1, that it works, and number 2, that you aren't too loud or too quiet. Make sure that your camera works and that you understand how to turn the sound and the video on and off in the software that you're using, even if you have to look up a tutorial. Lastly, plug in your computer before clicking to get into the virtual meeting room. The last thing that you would want to happen is for your computer to die mid-interview. Now that you have your setup ready to go and you've tested everything, how do you make a good impression through the screen? One thing that is difficult for many people is knowing where to look when talking and listening. We tend to look at ourselves on the screen while talking rather than looking at the camera. Don't do this. If you can look more directly at the camera, it'll feel much more natural to your interviewer, like you are actually making eye contact. A tip to help with this is to place your video window right under your camera. As long as it's at the top and in the middle of your screen, it'll look like you're looking at the camera, making it less obvious if you do accidentally look at yourself. Body language is super important during a virtual interview. You may be in a more comfortable setting, but it's still important to have good posture. Sit up straight in a chair and face the camera, and please don't do a video interview from your bed. Not only are you most likely at home in a more comfortable setting, but the interviewer can only also see part of your body, which is why you'll need to use facial expressions and gestures to show that you're excited, listening, and glad to be there. Use these expressions and gestures purposefully. No need to nod the entire time, and definitely don't wave your hands around every time that you speak. Oftentimes, interviewers have a hard time knowing when a candidate is done answering a question, especially since there can be audio delays, which leads to awkward pauses and accidentally cutting them off. When answering a question, make sure that you have a clear ending to your answer. The interviewer will probably pause for a half second just to make sure that you're done speaking, but we promise that it won't be as awkward as it may feel. Have your resume, job description, and interview questions next to you or even pulled up on your screen, along with a pen and notepad. If you're using your computer to view these, make sure that you have them pulled up before your interview. You don't want to spend time trying to pull them up during your interview. Make sure that you have them ready to go beforehand. It's okay to tell your interviewer if you plan on taking notes. It helps them know what's going on rather than thinking that you're distracted. Try not to take notes on your computer, especially if you have a noisy keyboard, since that can be distracting. Just like in an in-person interview, a great way to make a connection and stand out in a virtual interview is to do your research and ask good questions. You should ask thought-provoking questions and ask questions that would help you determine whether or not you would accept a job offer. It truly goes a long way when you know who you're interviewing for and show your desire to learn more about them. Don't forget, you can still make a good impression after the interview is done. Be sure to get the interviewer's contact information so you can send them a thank you email directly. There are many things to be mindful of in an interview, especially during a virtual interview, so just a few final reminders. Practicing with friends and family can benefit you significantly. It will make you more comfortable and make your future interviews that much better. Know what you look like on the screen and make sure that you present yourself just as you would if it was an in-person interview. Use hand gestures and facial expressions to show that you're listening and engaged in the conversation. Remember, look at the camera, not at yourself. Last but not least, eliminate distractions. Make sure that your technology is all set up and you're ready to go before your interview. If you have any questions about virtual interviews, leave them in the comments below and subscribe to our channel for more career tips. Thanks for listening.